Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Happy Tuesday to you. Welcome to the program. If you want to give us a call, our phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And Biden is on his way to the Middle East, and it's interesting. The question remains, is he there to flex as the leader that he is? Is he there to stall and allow Hamas to buy time to prevent the attack on Israel? Is he there to get snubbed by Palestinian Authority leader Abbas, who canceled his meeting with Biden? I don't know, but that's actually what happened right now. And I just think that's funny. The meeting that he intended to have while in Israel and in the region now has this Biden summit with Abbas canceled. And now here's the story on that. Let's see, where does it go? Biden cancels summit. Here we go. So Jordan, and it was going to happen in Jordan, the country of Jordan, has canceled the meeting slated for Wednesday with President Biden and other leaders in protest over an airstrike that hit a hospital in Gaza. This is the big story right now, and reportedly killed hundreds of people. Earlier on Tuesday, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas canceled his participation in the meeting with Biden. Jordan's King Abdullah II and Egypt's president was set for Wednesday in Amman, Jordan, to discuss the war between Israel and Hamas. Later, the foreign minister of Jordan told the state-run television network that his country had canceled the summit, saying that the war between Israel and Hamas was pushing the region to the brink. He said the meeting would be postponed. Hamas has blamed Israel's military for the Tuesday airstrike at the Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital. The Hamas health ministry said at least 500 people were killed. The Israeli Defense Forces said it investigated the incident and determined it to be a failed rocket launch by the Islamic Jihad, a smaller, more radical Palestinian militant group that often cooperates with Hamas. Like Hamas, Islamic Jihad is funded and supported by Iran. No surprise there. And this is according to Fox News. The rocket was fired from Gaza and was in close proximity to the hospital at the time it was hit. The IDF said Biden will visit Israel on Wednesday to speak with Israeli leaders in a show of support. He was slated to meet with Middle Eastern leaders on the same day as the war continues to escalate each day. So that's the situation with Joe El Baboso Biden not meeting. He's been dissed by Abbas and the other leaders. And, of course, that led to another attack where a dozen or so people, or dozens rather, stormed the Israeli embassy in Jordan after the hospital blast. Dozens of people are storming towards the Israeli embassy in Jordan in the wake of the blast. The foreign ministry's yet to respond to what exactly is going on. Videos on Twitter showed an angry crowd surrounding the building and attempting to force their way inside. Yeah, nobody really knows right now if there were any Israeli staffers in the building, but things continue to escalate. And I got to tell you, I don't believe in any of these conflicts, right? Whether it's Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Hamas, and any of these conflicts, that there is a good guy and a bad guy, right? And I'm not trashing anybody here. I'm just saying it's war, right? So they're going to, oh, this guy killed this guy. No, but that guy killed this guy. Yeah, people are going to kill each other. It's war. And I think there's some rules of engagement that you're supposed to follow, but ultimately everybody sees the other party as the bad guy. And this one is a fundamental one, because whether the Palestinians that are supporting Hamas, if they're on board because they feel that there are Jewish settlers moving in on their territory, that seems to be the the line that AOC and the squad and everybody like. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying that that's not why you go and kill people like little kids. Others are saying, oh, that's all propaganda. They didn't kill anybody. They didn't kill anyone. This is the Israelis doing it themselves. And now you got this hospital blowing up, and the Israelis are saying, no, we didn't blow it up. They blew themselves up. Right? There's always this part of war that's based on information warfare. And that's lamentably what it is. That's what it is. And there's constantly a back and forth, right? There's a back and forth on everything going on. And this is why I feel like it's important to stay abreast of everything so that you know what's going on. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, you've got Israel, which, has their land, the Jewish state that was created back in 1948, if I'm not mistaken. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a settled thing. But it gets exacerbated when you have people that say, no, because that was my grandfather's land and my great-grandfather's land. And, you were at other places of the world and came here and stole our land. This stolen land argument is not only propagated by those that want to inflame others, but it's a really, honestly, deeply held belief by many people. And this is why people are sympathetic to Hamas and the Palestinians saying, what would you do if people kept taking your land and it was some big, bad country with lots of technology and lots of weapons and lots of this and lots of that? Wouldn't you reach a point where you just explode? And I can't really comment. That hasn't happened to me, but I doubt I would go and decapitate the children of the people that I oppose. And someone today told me something, and again, I haven't researched it. I'll run it by my resident Animal Planet expert who's in the studio. But he was telling me, he's like, this is a natural part of human nature or the animal kingdom. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, hyenas like to sneak up on baby lions and kill them. And they don't eat them. It's not for food. It's not hunting. They kill them because they know that they can take on the baby lion, but they can't take on the mother lion or the father lion. So they go after the little one, and then they leave it there, dead, because they're trying to survive. They're eliminating their future competition. And I said, that's one of the craziest things I've ever heard. I said, I don't get that. And he said, yeah, but that's what they're doing. And I was like, I think you need to stop watching these shows. I think you're watching a little bit too much of it. Ultimately, you can try to come up with mental gymnastics and be a contortionist and make whatever argument you want for why people are getting to this point where they're so inflamed with emotion. But I'm never going to be okay with jumping on hang gliders, going into a music festival and killing a bunch of teenagers, and then at night raiding small villages and going and killing babies and setting them afire and old people and kidnapping them and the torture that's going on. I've yet to see an Israeli do anything like that. And for anybody to try to make the argument otherwise, I feel is a moot point for me. You're not going to sway me. And this doesn't mean that I say that every IDF fighter is righteous and that every Hamas person is or every Palestinian rather is with Hamas. I'm not saying any of those declarative statements. I'm just saying there's a fundamental difference here, and it's that Israel is defending its right to exist, and Hamas is promoting the idea that Israel should not exist, and they want to wipe them off the map. And when you have a situation like that, that's that unreasonable, you're never going to be able to reason with someone like that. Anyway, I want to talk about the speaker's race. We're going to get into a little AOC later. She's calling for a ceasefire. We're going to hear that audio. Of course, Biden's numbers are continuing to plummet, and there's a new pronoun mandate. We're going to get to that. And, of course, an update on the speaker's race as Jim Jordan came close, but no cigar. We're going to talk about that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. 833-482-5337 is the number. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
no person having received a majority of the whole number of votes cast by surname, a speaker has not been elected. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the chair declares the House in recess subject to the call of the chair.
That's Patrick McHenry, the congressman serving as the acting speaker, announcing that Jim Jordan got 200 votes shy of the 217 that he needed in order to get elected as speaker. Democrats voting in lockstep for their guy, Minority Leader Jeffries. And there was a couple of 20 Republicans that did not vote for Jim Jordan for speaker. This is sort of a repeat of what we saw, I think, in January. Although I don't know if it's going to be as contentious, but we're going to find out with our guest. Congressman Richard McCormick from Georgia's 6th District joins us. Congressman, welcome back, sir.
Well, thank you. It's good to be with you.
My pleasure. So give us an update. I know that you've got, let me see, Ken Buck didn't respond when they called the roll. You've got D'Esposito from New York. Let's see, somebody voted for Tom Emmer. A whole lot of things are going on, voting against Jim Jordan. Is this, well, let me ask you this. I'll leave it more open-ended. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, I think it's multifactorial. You saw 5 people vote for McCarthy. You had 7 people vote for Scalise. 3 people vote for the gubernatorial candidate from New York, as a matter of fact. And those were all New Yorkers. You had, I think, 4 people vote for individual people, to include Thomas Massey, Emmer, and I can't remember who the other 2 were, but I think it's all over the map. I think everybody has their own motivations. I think there's not one reason specifically that people don't like people. One person said, I want him to admit that the January 20th was a legitimate election. That was his request. I'm like, come on. I mean, why is that a requisite to be a leader right now?
Right.
We had another person who I actually heard some objections of people who actually voted for him that were actually talking about the fact that he won't bring a bill to the floor that was more similar to the first bill we did for an extended period with cuts and was border secure. They wanted to see something more like that on the floor and give it a try before we go to a clean CR to get extended. So lots of different reasons.
From your experience, do you think that these are issues that'll get resolved, or is this something that's going to continue to be a stalemate?
I've heard both things, and of course, it's all rumors, right? And we've never been through this before. We've heard, the one thing's for sure: if he gains votes, he's in good shape. If he loses votes, he's in really bad shape, and we're going to go on to the next 2. And so, really, tomorrow's vote will be consequential whether we're moving forward or not.
So, if tomorrow we have another vote and Jordan gets more votes, then it's a good thing. If not, then we get rid of Jordan and we put other people in?
That's correct. That's how I feel. You just don't usually go backwards and succeed. You gotta show that you can actually collect votes. If you're losing votes, you're in big trouble.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Now, and again, I know these are your colleagues, and I'm not trying to paint you into a corner in any way, but I find it interesting. This came up around the last time with, and I like Lee Zeldin, really good guy, but I didn't hear about him getting involved in this race for speaker until I saw these people nominating him. Is this a vote that's wasted, or is this a vote to get some attention, to have Jordan approach him and say, all right, what's going on? What do you need from me? How do we get closer to you coming onto my team?
That's a good question. I think the New Yorkers kind of have their own reasons. It may be one of those things where they're just trying to make a statement. There may also be an actual movement they're trying to create. I don't think it's a serious movement. Once again, you got 3 votes. They're all from New York. I don't see him as a serious candidate right now. I think if you're going to really move into the serious candidate thing, none of the people mentioned McCarthy already voted for Jordan. Scalise voted for Jordan. Zeldin's, they would be making history again. I guess he's not employed right now. Maybe he'd be a good speaker. I don't know. But the point being that the serious conversation is whether Jordan's going to be the speaker or not first, and then we'll decide from there. Tomorrow's vote will determine that.
Now, what do you think, in so much as you know and you're able to discuss, that some people are holding out for something that's not just a principled, I don't like Jordan, or I'm doing this, more so something personal, like I want a certain committee, or I want preferential treatment here or there?
I really don't get that impression. I really don't. Now, somebody made an interesting observation that there were kind of three different people that you could see rooting for against him: appropriations people, war hawks, and people who are in marginalized districts who are maybe more moderate.
Like Ken Buck.
You can make that case, yeah. But you can make that case. But I think ultimately, the bigger case is that people just have individual problems with him. But it's not. They're not asking for anything. As far as I know, people are being pretty idealistic about this. I think they're really trying to do the right thing for what they believe in or what they think is good for their district. I don't feel like they're making specific acts like for a committee or anything like that. I think those days are over. That ended back in January.
All right. Well, that's good to know. Now, if you had to guess, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, do you think this goes another 15 rounds, or is it really going to be decided tomorrow?
I think we'll know at least if Jim Jordan's going to be there tomorrow. And then I think after that, we'll know if we have two more candidates. I think we will get to the end of this by the end of this week. It's my hope anyways. Whether it's Jim Jordan or not, like I said, we'll know tomorrow.
Now, who are you backing in the race?
I'm with Jordan. I mean, he's not a perfect candidate. There's no perfect candidate. There's nobody who matches everybody perfectly. We're not a cult. There's no, this is not a tyranny where one person matches up with you perfectly, because nobody in Congress is the same. We don't all want the same thing. So this is about finding the best match to lead us into the future, who can raise money, who can collectively bargain and bring Chip Roy and Dusty back to the table and figure out how we can get a bill passed so we can finish on time next time and as fast as possible at this time.
Now, Congressman McCormick, I know that we've heard this week that Scalise put his support for Jordan out there, yet there were people supporting, as did McCarthy, yet there were people that nominated both McCarthy and Scalise. Again, do you think this is ideological? Is it to get a little attention? I'm just thinking, to me, it seems like if the guy that you want is going with somebody else, it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense from me as a layman.
No, and I remember we went through this with the 15 votes before. We had people nominating Jordan, and he was like, he's the one who nominated McCarthy.
Right.
So it doesn't make much sense. We've already kind of settled that before. McCarthy's been very clear on this. Could McCarthy come back? Yeah, I guess he could, but what are you going to do with the 8 people who voted against him last time? I just don't see them moving. So I think McCarthy's kind of come to the conclusion that that's not going to work. Let's move on. Let's get this done. That's why I think he threw his full weight behind Jordan, and that's why I think he has the best bet of winning right now. But like I said, anything's possible, and we've seen that in the last couple of weeks.
Right, and it seems to me, from what I remember McCarthy came in kind of short in that first election, and that first vote, and he kept going. But it seems like Jordan came in a little stronger in his first vote, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
He did. Well, it's about the same, actually. In many ways, you had 20 people holding out, kind of like with McCarthy. McCarthy stayed very, very steady for several votes until they started to break, and it took a lot of hard work and negotiation. I think the question is this one going to be idealistic, or are people going to move on the second vote?
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Well, folks, we're on with Congressman Richard McCormick from Georgia's 6th District. We're discussing the speaker's race. We're going to talk a little bit about Biden's trip to Israel, as well as McCormick's Make Putin Pay Act. Straight ahead, if you want to ask a question, 833-482-5337-833-4-Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
We got to have a speaker, and it can't be some deal with the Democrats. I mean, American people don't want that. They elect Republicans in a majority, small majority. I get it, but we got 200 votes in the first ballot. I think that maybe even is more than what Kevin got back in January. Right about where Kevin was. Gus Billirakis is a vote for us. That's 201. We've had good conversations. We're going to keep working.
That's Jim Jordan responding to not making it on the first ballot today. And our guest is Congressman Richard McCormick from Georgia's 6th District. And we have a question from Sandra in Dothan, Alabama on WDBT. Sandra, go right ahead. You're on with Congressman McCormick and Rich Valdez.
Okay, this past year we had this election and we didn't get all the Republicans back in the House that we figured. So we have control of the House. But now you had a vote today which didn't pass, and tomorrow you might have another vote and it could get worse. What's the chances of some Republicans flipping over and voting for Jeffries? Because I think there's a possibility. Today this vote should have been 100%. It would have showed solidarity in the Republican Party, and it didn't happen. So what do you think the chances are?
Congressman?
Well, I think the second part is correct. I wish it was solidarity. I wish we were united, but we're not. We have a lot of individualism, rugged individualism. I like to make it as positive as possible. But I don't see any Republicans breaking to go over the Democrats. First of all, it's political suicide. Even for the most moderate people from the most Democratic districts, I just don't think that's how they won, and they're not going to win doing that. So I've never heard one person talk about doing that. I don't. If they did, man, it would cause such a ruckus. I can't even imagine them surviving. I would primary myself. I just really think that would be a horrible mistake, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you, Sandra. And Congressman McCormick, Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, yesterday announced Joe Biden's trip to Israel, and I have a clip of that. Go right ahead.
On Wednesday, President Biden will visit Israel. He's coming here at a critical moment for Israel, for the region, and for the world. And he's coming here to do the following. First, the president will reaffirm the United States' solidarity with Israel and our ironclad commitment to its security. President Biden will again make clear, as he's done unequivocally since Hamas's slaughter of more than 1,400 people, including at least 30 Americans, that Israel has the right and indeed the duty to defend its people from Hamas and other terrorists and to prevent future attacks. The President will hear from Israel what it needs to defend its people as we continue to work with Congress to meet those needs.
Now, since that announcement, Congressman, the Saudi Crown Prince has snubbed Blinken. The leader, President Abbas from Palestine, he said, I'm not meeting with Biden. And things seem to be going south for Biden in his little, let's make nice type of meeting. There's reports that the White House has discussed a U.S. military response if Hezbollah attacks Israel. And the crazies, the mullahs in Iran, have said that they're considering getting involved in this. What do you make of all that?
These are concerning times. I happen to be on foreign affairs with an emphasis. My subcommittee is in the Middle East, North Africa. So this greatly disturbs me. I was stationed in the Persian Gulf a couple tours. I've been to Israel as a civilian. I've been off the coast as a military guy in the Marine Expeditionary Unit. So I really, I have huge concerns going to the next stage where you don't know how much involvement we're going to have from foreign countries and what they're going to bring to the table. This seems like a very coordinated effort. I mean, when you look at everything from gliders to going to the wires to vehicles to all the weapons, this was not something isolated. And I do believe that Hezbollah is looking for a reason to get involved. The Iran was I think they were caught off guard, quite frankly, but they're probably looking for a reason to get involved. This starts to spread very quickly. That's why we have two ARGs, in other words, carrier groups out there ready to get to work and stabilize the region so that we don't have big players like Iran get involved.
Now, there's practical questions. Janet Yellen yesterday said, oh, yeah, I believe that the United States could handle multiple wars, which is great for her. I don't know how realistic that is from my perspective. But what are your thoughts on that? If this were to happen, and do other U.S. allies get involved if the United States gets involved?
Well, there's not as many countries dedicated to Israel like we are. I mean, we're a unique ally for them, and they're a unique ally for us. And they're the only democracy in that region. They're great, very friendly to us. We have a long-standing religious affiliation with them as well as a political affiliation with them. We have a ton of Jewish diaspora from Israel in our country and vice versa. And so we're linked. If you want to talk about other countries getting involved, I'm not sure that most countries have the stomach for doing that and other wars such as Ukraine at the same time. But this is a world stage. If you look at what's happening in China, with Taiwan, in Ukraine, with Europe, I mean, there is a lot of posturing all over the world. Iran's been causing all kinds of problems. They're a worldwide terror sponsor. You saw what just happened in Afghanistan. They have 27 terrorist bases being trained right now in Afghanistan since we left. So we have some major problems and a lot of bad players that we have to keep in check.
Politically speaking, how does this affect Joe Biden?
Well, he looks pretty weak. Let's face it; these kind of things weren't happening when Trump was president, and there's probably a reason. Strength begets respect, and respect begets peace. And we're lacking that because we look weak right now. That you have an indecisive, inept president who can't even make a case for anything we're involved in right now. He kind of talks in generalized platitudes without any specifics. Doesn't have an idea of economics. Doesn't have an idea of the border or crime or education or debt. He just is not a good spokesperson for the Democratic Party, as if there would be any good spokesperson for the kind of things that they've been supporting lately. But he is the wrong guy.
Yeah, I agree with that. So we've got the Middle East is slowly going ablaze under Biden's watch. We've got Europe that's been ablaze since he got here. And you've got a new bill. Tell us about this new bill that's focused on Russia.
So what it does is it takes the seized and frozen assets of Russia, both here and abroad. And I'll start with the bill we have here in the United States. It uses those monetary values to be used against Russia in this war. It would literally fund the war. It's over $100 billion right here in the United States and $330 billion worldwide. I just got back from Copenhagen last week, where we submitted a bill that basically would require Europe to use as much as the law would require the frozen assets over there, which is over $230 billion to fund the war effort in Ukraine. And if they don't have laws that allow that, to change their laws accordingly. So that's one nice, loosely binding resolution we came up with at NATO. And then we did the same here in the United States. And that will literally be like Russia paying for the war against them.
How is the support for the bill?
So far, so good. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it seems like it would be a bipartisan effort. So I'm excited about it. It makes sense to me. I mean, this is a bad actor who's cost the rest of the world a ton of money. Look, if they take over Ukraine, they're going to own 70% of Europe's grain, and they're going to sell it to Russia most likely. And they're going to forever be adversarial to all the nations around them, because if they get away with it, they're going to continue with Lithuania, Estonia, Moldova. These are bad actors, and Putin has told us exactly what he wants to do.
All right. Now, Congressman McCormick, let everybody know how they can follow the work that you're doing and how they could support you in supporting this bill.
So richmccormick.us is my website. I'm also at mccormick.house.gov as my official site. And just keep an eye on us. I got some big plans for next year, too. The economy, debt, crime, you name it. We're going after all of it. These are some things that unite us and divide the Democrats, give us a good chance to expand our House lead, take back the Senate, and win the presidency.
Outstanding. Well, keep us up to speed. We're always happy to chat with you. You're always welcome here. Congressman Richard McCormick, he's a doctor, he's a veteran, he's a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thank you, sir.
It's my pleasure. God bless. Semper Fi.
You bet. God bless. All right, folks, we continue with your calls and more. Plus, AOC's called for a ceasefire. You don't want to miss this. Coming up straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I'm so glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
as all of this kind of kicked off, you and several other of your colleagues released a statement calling for a ceasefire in the region. But I wonder, what is Israel supposed to do about Hamas after they murdered, brutalized, abducted over 1,000 of their citizens? Are they supposed to just do nothing?
Well, I think what's important to note about a ceasefire is that it's not one-sided. Hamas has been sending thousands of rockets into Israel as well. And what is important is for us to identify our goal in terms of what safety means, in terms of what defense means.
But
and
if I may, Congresswoman, I think the position from Israel's perspective is that there was already an attack. And Hamas already committed an attack. After that happened, do you really believe that they should not respond to that?
I think what is important in terms of response is Israel does have a right to self-defense. I think what we need to take a look at in this situation is if collective punishment qualifies as defense, if the blockade on water, food, electricity, if the dropping of white phosphorus, which is an indiscriminate weapon, qualifies. So I do believe that there's a discussion to be had here. I don't believe that an either-or approach is what is necessary, but we should identify what our goal is, which is the cooling of tensions.
So AOC says, look, what's important here is they have a right to defend themselves, but what we should talk about is what defense really means, right? Does defending yourself really mean going after the bad guys, or does it not? I think this is absolute crazy town. Again, if we're going to it's great to call for a ceasefire, but when you can't make an articulate argument, right, you can't really sit here and spell out why should Israel stop when they were attacked brutally. I mean, this was not, they kidnapped 3 people, and not that wouldn't be enough, but that 1,000 people have been killed, and brutally. This wasn't something like one big rocket from Hamas blew up 1,000 people. No, this was a lot of individual people that were tortured and killed and burnt to death and beheaded, and I mean, it's just absolutely gruesome what happened. So yeah, I mean, I can't think of a scenario where anybody say, listen, we understand you came here, you attacked our people. We're going to be very indiscriminate in our response. We're not. I think they're showing remarkable constraint. I mean, really, I think most people listening to this program right now think if you were the president of Israel, the prime minister, and someone did that to you, how would you respond? I can tell you for me, I am Mr. Knee-jerk reaction. I would be knee-jerking right away. I mean, absolutely. I would have sounded some sirens, done whatever it is you have to do to say, hey, listen, get out of Dodge. I would have publicly embarrassed the Egyptians and said, open your border, take in the women and children. The men that want to stay and fight, let them stay, but I'm coming. And they've been announcing this ground war that's coming and coming and coming, and they've been slow, and now Biden's there, and he's slowing things down. And I think that's his intention, to be there to try and cool things. And I don't blame him for that, honestly. I think it's a good idea to come up with a solution that does not include killing everybody everywhere. I think that's just fair, but you got to get the bad guys. You can't let the bad guys get away, and you can't also stall this long enough that the bad guys figure out exactly how to better attack Israel even more. So, I mean, that's my thoughts. I want to get to the phones and get your thoughts on it. Let's go to Brooklyn, New York, WFAS. Let's check in with Alex. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich. That response from AOC is as messy or more messy than Kamala Harris and Joe Biden combined together. Because
Alex, as she was saying that, I thought to myself, who wrote this response for her? Was it Kamala Harris when she says things? We have to define what safety means and defense. It's absolute insanity from the queen of crazy herself, AOC, all out crazy. Go right ahead.
Well, maybe the guy that writes Kamala's speeches, because I don't know if Kamala could write. She can't read, right? Because she doesn't read the teleprompter. She just wings it herself. But AOC, she's saying now that they have a right to defend herself, and that's what she was saying. No, she didn't say that. It's not like she said Israel has a right to defend itself, but don't do this and don't do that. But you can fire back. Just don't, hurt innocent civilians. She called for a ceasefire immediately and said, do not react. So she's completely flipping over now in that response, which is absurd. But now you have this hospital that was attacked, and as it seems now it's from Hamas, right? And it seems like it was maybe an accident. I personally think it was done purposely by Hamas. And even if this was by Israel's doing purposely, I would still blame it on Hamas because Hamas puts military equipment in hospitals like that one. So Israel has a right to defend itself with that. But all these people that are coming out and saying Israel's at fault when so far the evidence shows otherwise, they don't care about the truth. They don't care about the innocent civilians. 500 have died at the hands of Hamas in this case. All they care about is spewing hatred against the Jewish people. And this clearly shows that they don't care. And I'll tell you why I think Hamas did this purposely, because you have Joe Biden going tomorrow to meet with Abbas. You had Blinken going to meet with other people involved. And I think a deal was going to be made pretty soon because if you notice, Israel didn't go in, right? They didn't do the full invasion. And I think because there are a lot of bombs underground that are remote controlled by Hamas. You know, they had many years to plan all these bombs, and Israel's afraid to go in. So they were going to back out now. But Hamas, they want this war to continue. And now you got Abbas backing out because of this shooting of the hospital. I think they did it purposely. Maybe I'm wrong. But to go and blame Israel, that shows that you don't care about the civilians. Just for keeping military equipment in a hospital, that itself shows you how horrendous these Hamas people are. But now you go and blame it at Israel. You're just hating Jews, or not you, those people, at the expense of the innocent Palestinians that are dying also as a result of it.
Yeah, I think you're right, Alex. It seems like a page out of their playbook where they're going to set up, rocket launchers on the roof of a hospital and say, we're going to shoot from here, and then you can't shoot us back because we're in a hospital. And they do this time and again, hiding in hospitals, schools, mosques, and the like, and using the innocents as human shields. Alex, thanks for your call. We're going to get to the rest of your calls momentarily. Don't go anywhere. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back. Let's go to the phones. We go to Johnson City, Tennessee, WJCW, and check in with Joel. Go right ahead.
Well, good evening, Rich. Rich, let me pull back for a second from what everybody's saying. I'm just a little tired of and frustrated of everybody calling Democrats dumb, stupid, inept, blah, blah, blah. If we look at what has been happening the past 20 years with Democrats, very simply, you have the policy with Iran. You had the pull out as soon as Biden got into office, the disastrous, quote unquote, but the very well planned pullout where we left $20 billion of weapons in Afghanistan. You have the war in Russia and the slow walking of aid, making sure that Ukraine really can't win because they don't have the weaponry they need. And this sudden attack on Israel after billions of dollars, even though it wasn't used immediately, billions of dollars was given to Iran. 25 billion was given to Hamas yearly after Trump had taken it away from them and discontinued it. What you have is a pattern and a policy. What is happening in the world from the border to the economy to Russia to Ukraine to Israel, what's happening now in France with Niger, what you have now is a policy that there's going to be major disruption, and God help us if the Chinese go into Ukraine. These are not dumb people. Biden may be losing it, but what you have is a policy that is doing exactly what they want to the world.
I see what you're saying. Don't say they're dumb when they're doing exactly as they want to do and they're pulling the wool over our eyes. I agree with you, Joel. I think these are bad guys doing bad things, bad policy that's creating very bad results. They're not dumb. They're demonic. Thank you, Joel, for the call. I appreciate it. Rich Valdez coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And our phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And we continue our discussion on everything going on around the world, in particular what's happening in Gaza with the war that Hamas has launched, a brutal war on Israel. And there's a lot of talk around it. Obviously, you have a lot of people saying lots of different things. There is a uprising of pro-Hamas support at many rallies around here. I've seen some shocking images of people at what they claim are pro-Palestinian rallies, and they're free to do that. But I've seen some where some of the participants were Sieg Heiling, with their hand in the air. One of them had a swastika on his arm, and it was just crazy to see that type of thing. But that's what's happening. Again, I'm not saying it's happening en masse, but I'm seeing it, and I have not seen that type of thing before. So I thought that was very, very shocking. But I want you to hear a clip on BBC News yesterday where the anchor, Mariam Moshiri, apologizes for saying that pro-Palestinian protesters are Hamas supporters. Listen to this.
Now, before we go, earlier on BBC News, we reported on some of the pro-Palestinian demonstrations at the weekend. We spoke about several demonstrations across Britain during which people voiced their backing for Hamas. We accept that this was poorly phrased and was a misleading description of the pro-Palestinian demonstrations. Now, here's the weather.
Now, I don't fault her for making the correction, but there are, in fact, instances where it's the same. And we're seeing more and more of that, especially when you had these hang gliders and coming into the initial part of this attack, and some of the Black Lives Matters supporters, protesters, activists had the Black Lives Matter logo superimposed with a parachute supporting it. We also had this gentleman in Philly who was on the mic. I don't know if we still have that audio, but it was very shocking to me. And he says he salutes Hamas. He salutes it. It's a good thing. Listen to this.
To Hamas for a job well done. When they woke up in the morning and they found the field hands in the house with a knife ready to cut their throats. I was late to the news, but when I heard it, I smiled. I don't want to hear that 250 innocent Israelis are dead. Again, I swear, I salute Hamas. A job well done.
When you hear this type of crazy, I don't think there's a need to change the caption on saying things. Of course, some of the people there are supporting innocent Palestinians, but the bottom line is there are people out there that are absolutely vicious and want to see the demise of the Jews, just like Hamas does. So I want to get into that and several other topics regarding the Israeli ground offensive to go into Gaza with our guest, Jonathan Tobin. He's editor-in-chief of Jewish News Syndicate. He's also the host of Top Story with Jonathan Tobin on JNS. You could check them out at jns.org. He was also a senior contributor to the Federalist and a columnist in the New York Post and Newsweek. And Jonathan Tobin is with us. Welcome, sir.
Thanks very much for having me.
You bet. So let's talk a little bit about this back and forth, if you can. What's the sense that you're getting with these rallies, and so much as you're following that? Do you sense that there are a multitude of people that are supporting Hamas and supporting the violence and the demise of the Jews, or is it people really supporting innocent Palestinians that are getting caught in the crossfire?
Well, I think there are two. If you're asking me, there are two things I'm concerned about. I am concerned about these pro-Hamas rallies. I'm not shy about calling them pro-Hamas because when you look at what they've said and what their post and what their posters say, and it's pretty clear they're supporting Hamas. They turned out, not to just express their opinions about an ideal solution for the conflict in the Middle East. They're in the streets saying, wow, I've got to express my support because I'm angry about the anger against Hamas and against these crimes. I happen to think that it's related to a lot of the other issues that we talk about in American politics in recent years, the rise of things like critical race theory and, sort of the whole intersectional debate. In a lot of people's minds on the far left or hard left, or the intersectional left, if you will, Israel, in which everybody gets divided into two categories. You're either a victim or you're an oppressor. And they have falsely characterized Israel and the Jews as white oppressors. Now, that's nuts, on a number of levels, not least the fact that the majority of Israeli Jews are, by the definitions of the American left, people of color because they trace their origins to the Middle East and North Africa, but also because they are not colonizers. The Jews are the indigenous people of the land of Israel. I mean, it goes back thousands of years. And they have a right to be there, and Israel has a right to exist. But in this sort of intersectional mindset, it's, somehow the Palestinian war and the Hamas war specifically to destroy the state of Israel, which is the goal of Hamas, has gotten identified with things like the American Civil Rights Movement, and that's completely false. Now, if you're asking me, do I think some of the people turn out there just have sympathy for Palestinians? I mean, some may. But, the tenor of these events, in these polarized times, they're taking a side. You don't show up at something like this if you're undecided about it all. So that's one thing. I'm actually more concerned, as angry as I am and as outraged by the public expression of anti-Semitism at these demonstrations, not just in the streets, but on the campuses of elite universities, whether it's Harvard or Columbia, where I went a long time ago. That is terrible, and it's shocked a lot of us. I mean, some of us who don't follow these things very closely, and they've woken up to see the world's a little different than they thought. I'm just as angry, maybe even more concerned about a lot of these sort of decent liberal opinion about all this, in which the bestial crimes committed by the Hamas terrorists are treated as morally equivalent to the actions of Israel attempting to take out and to basically stop terrorism. We've gotten this idea that the two things are the same, and that therefore there should be just a ceasefire, and that any efforts by Israel to take out the terrorists are somehow as wrong as people crossing a border, slaughtering 1,400 men, women, and children, wounding thousands of others, committing rape and, torture and, desecrating dead bodies and kidnapping up to 200 people back into Gaza, including 14 Americans. That's not acceptable. If you don't have moral clarity about what's right and wrong there, I'm sorry. I don't think that's something that decent people should be able to agree to disagree about. If you can't take a stand against that, if you can't see that efforts to destroy the terrorists are justified and that terrorism must be destroyed, don't tell me about your high morals.
Outstanding point. And speaking of morality, there's AOC has made a call, all out crazy, as I like to call her, the congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She says we need a ceasefire prior to Hamas being completely decimated. There's a contention that this is not just a pro-terror position, but an immoral one. What say you?
Well, AOC is such a fascinating character, especially for us journalists. She is just the gift that never stops giving in terms
Keeps on
of,
giving.
stories and copy, right? And she's also sometimes a very good indicator of, you know, where fashionable opinion is moving, because she is such a crass opportunist that, you know, it's really interesting. At first, she was supporting these awful demonstrations, but then when, you know, there got pushback from even people like Mayor Eric Adams and many others that this is horrifying anti-Semitism, she was like, whoa, no, I'm not for that. I'm concerned about everything that's bad. So she was like, all right, you know, pulling back. And it shows that these open anti-Semites, you know, again, as infuriating as they are, they don't really represent, a strong body of opinion in this country. If AOC doesn't want to identify with you, you know, if she thinks you're a little too toxic, then you are really, really toxic. And her position about, okay, now ceasefire, well, that's what I'm talking about. If, you know, basically she's saying Hamas should be allowed to get away with this, that this is just some kind of conflict in which, you know, there's right and wrong on both sides. And the truth is, the conflict between Israel and Palestinians, you know, the last 100 years of the Middle East, it is a complex and difficult conflict. You know, nobody, you know, I get that. Sure, I've spent my whole life covering it. But if you can't say that what Hamas did is wrong and that Hamas is not a legitimate actor and that they need to be taken down, there's something wrong with you. It's something wrong with your moral compass, because if you follow her conclusion about a ceasefire, what she is basically saying is that when the dust settles, Hamas will still be standing in control of Gaza, where it governs an independent Palestinian terrorist state in all but name, and that they should be untouchable and with behind their human shields, and that they should be allowed to triumph here. And, you know, think back to how we all felt in this country after 9/11. Mm-hmm. If someone had told the American people, as we were cleaning up the rubble from the World Trade Center, finding bodies, which took months, they're still finding bodies in Israel from these terrible atrocities. And you had told America, well, you got to have a ceasefire with the people that did this. You know, imagine how popular that opinion would be. Remember, what did we do in response to 9/11? We went to the other side of the world to take out the al-Qaeda bases from which Osama bin Laden sent his evil minions to commit mass slaughter in the United States. Well, you know what? The moral equivalent of those camps for Israel is right next door. And they have come to the conclusion that they can't have coexistence with a group like that. I think they're absolutely right. Even Joe Biden thinks they're absolutely right about that, or at least he's saying so for the moment. And for you, anybody who's calling for a ceasefire right now, I'm sorry, you're not, you know, showing your virtue. You're not showing how fair you are. You are taking sides with the terrorists, because if you let them get away with this, there's no other way to describe you.
Well put, Jonathan Tobin. Stick with us. I want to continue to get your take on the developments with hostages and the expected ground offensive that is to take place relatively soon. Folks, we're on with Jonathan Tobin from JNS. He's the editor-in-chief. We're coming right back. Your calls and more, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
A short while ago with a senior Hamas official, and I was pressing him about this issue of the hostages. Yesterday, the head of Hamas's, the chief spokesman for Hamas's military wing, made an offer in a video saying that the group was willing to release all foreign hostages, but didn't explain the conditions. It was kind of a vague statement. The group said that if the ground conditions are right, that Hamas would release all foreigners. I called the senior official today. I said, could you give us some clarification? What are the conditions? What do field conditions mean? And he said that the offer still stands, that the group is willing to release all foreign hostages. And he told me what they are asking for is for the airstrikes on Gaza to stop. Then I said, well, what about the Israelis? He said, this offer applies to all civilians, to all Israeli civilians, foreign civilians. And he said that what they need is for the airstrikes to stop. And I pressed him. I said, well, if you are so eager to release these hostages and you want to release the civilians, why not just let them go now? Why do the airstrikes need to stop? Find a safe place, let them go. He said it was logistically impossible, that there was no safe place, that they are under too much bombardment. I said, I don't find that believable. There must be some place where you can find a way to get the hostages out. Just drive them in a car, drop them at the border, let them go. He was somewhat annoyed by that. He said, are you negotiating with me or interviewing? I said, these people have families back home. They're our viewers. I want to know, why aren't you releasing them? And he said, why should we?
That's NBC's Richard Engel with that report. Now, some of the hostages are being held by Palestinian Islamic Jihad. It's another group based in Gaza. And others are being held by random Gaza citizen opportunists. And that's a quote from a former U.S. official that was interviewed as part of this NBC News piece. And our guest from the Jewish News Syndicate, the editor-in-chief, is still with us, Jonathan Tobin. What's your reaction to that report?
You know, it's so mind-boggling. You know, what should any of us say in response to the spokesman for what is a criminal, enterprise? Mm-hmm. Let's be honest here. This is a terrorist group that, slaughtered people in cold blood, attacked a music concert, where young people were hanging out, killed hundreds of them. Girls were raped, people were kidnapped. And now they're saying, oh, we'll release the foreigners, and which is sort of, there are a lot of echoes of the Holocaust in what's happened last week, not least the fact that this is the largest mass slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. Mm-hmm. But we'll separate the Jews from the non-Jews, the Israelis from the non-Israelis and let them go. I mean, come on. There's so much about this that is insane. This is a group that has no scruples, pretends, to be reasonable at times when it wants to get aid from the world. Billions of dollars have aid have been poured into Gaza, and it doesn't go to the people, doesn't go to making people's lives better. It just makes it a harder military target. So our response. I mean, let me just drill down a little bit on the hostages. Why I think this situation is so crazy. President Joe Biden has made a lot of great statements in support of Israel. He's supposed to arrive in Israel tomorrow for a solidarity visit, kind of a photo op.
Jonathan Tobin, I hate to cut you off, but the music means we've got like 15 or 20 seconds. Let everybody know how they can keep up to speed with the great work that you're doing.
They can find us at jns.org. You can follow me at JonathanS_Tobin.
Thank you for being with us. I apologize for running out of time. Excellent conversation. Hope to have you back. Folks, we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Again, we're about a half hour away from Open Phone America. But if you want to chime in on the conversation that we're having, you're welcome to give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. We also have the ability to receive your comments, and whether they be in support of the show or, in criticism of the show, feel free. And that's at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And before we forge ahead, There's yesterday I mentioned that on the 14th of October, Jim Bohannon did his farewell broadcast, and I was honored to be a guest on that program. And that following last year, that was a Friday, and then that following Monday, I became the new host of this program. And that was the 17th of October, which is today. So I totally forgot, but today is my 1-year anniversary. I had remembered, but I'd forgotten. So I want to thank each and every one of you that's out there listening to the program, that supports the program, and calls in and listens and shares it with your friends and sends your friends links to the interviews that we're doing. Because without an audience, you don't really have a program. Then I'm just talking into a microphone. And as much as I like talking into microphones, I like it when there's people at the other end. So thank you. I never take the audience for granted. I really have a lot of respect for all of you, even the ones that I argue with and yell at and whatever. I really do appreciate all of you. It makes a great radio program, and I appreciate it. And we're coming up on our 200th broadcast. That's coming up this week, so we'll make mention of that as well. Now, before we get into the rest of the story here that I wanted to cover, there's a clip of audio that I wanted to play for you regarding President Trump, because President Trump made some comments today, the 45th president of the United States, before the start of his civil trial in New York City today. And yes, the Letitia James, the Attorney General of the state of New York, he's saying that she defrauded the public with the trial. And I have to say, he's got a lot of merit to his argument. Listen to this.
This is a disgraceful situation. This is an Attorney General, Letitia, that went out and campaigned on, I will get Trump. I will get Trump no matter what. I'll get Trump. I promise I'll get him. We have 2 tapes on her now that have come out since the trial because people took tapes of her because they couldn't believe her ranting and raving like a lunatic. But just as the Attorney General of New York State, Letitia James, and she shouldn't be allowed to be Attorney General. She's defrauded the public with this trial. She said that Mar-a-Lago, she convinced the judge that Mar-a-Lago was worth in Palm Beach, Florida, the most expensive land in the world, I guess, and the most expensive houses definitely in the world. And Mar-a-Lago, the biggest house, the most spectacular place in all of Florida, was worth $18 million when it's worth approximately, could be close to 100 times that amount. And based on that testimony and based on her convincing the judge that Mar-a-Lago was worth $18 million instead of $1 billion to $1.5 billion, which would sell very easily, which we've already proven, but we'll have people come up and say that and prove it, the most important people, the brokers that make the sales. But based on that, he ruled against me. He ruled fraud. I mean, he said fraud. They are the fraudulent people.
So there's Trump, once again, defending himself quite uniquely, typically against the advice of his own counsel, saying, that's what we're here for. And I don't begrudge him one bit for doing what he's got to do. Something I've learned in radio is if you don't make a case for yourself, no one's really going to make it for you, right? The best advocate for you is you. And I think Trump is taking full advantage of that as they keep putting gag orders on him. He keeps playing, coloring within the lines of the gag orders and making these statements. Now, Joe Scarborough, who is the host of The Morning Joke on MSNBC, he says that Trump should be jailed if he violates the gag order. Listen to this.
Again, I'm sorry. He's running for president. That's awesome. Under the United States of America, under our laws, we believe that nobody's above the law. What would happen if in a case that you were trying, any case that you were trying, where a criminal defendant's told, don't go out and call us thugs, and then he goes out on the court steps, holds a press conference, and the defendant calls them thugs? I don't know where you practiced. I can tell you where I practiced, the judge would call him back in, hold him in the contempt of court, and throw him in jail.
Where I practiced, if somebody violated a court order, the judge would haul them back in, hold them in contempt, and sanction them. Maybe fine them, maybe put them in jail, but they would certainly sanction them.
That's Chuck Rosenberg. He's a former U.S. attorney, and apparently making the case that Trump should be jailed, right? Trump should be jailed for making a defense of himself if in this case, if he were to call someone a thug. And I would say, look, I really I understand the protection of witnesses. I understand sensitive information. But Trump saying that his property was devalued, even if he wanted to call Letitia James and the judge a thug, I think he's within his rights to make those things. Those aren't threats to those people. He's making statements that I think he should be allowed to make, in my opinion. And yes, I'm biased. I think he's an innocent man getting dragged through the mud, but I don't see him threatening anyone. I don't see how he's going to affect the outcome of a case by saying, look, I'm innocent. Last I checked, he had a Sixth Amendment right to do this. He has a First Amendment right to do this. So call me crazy, but I think El Trumpito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, has a right to defend himself. Anyway, we're going to get to your calls and more straight ahead as we continue our conversation. Don't go anywhere. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, America, to the phones we go for you to weigh in. Let's go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN, and check in with Abe. Abe, you're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rich.
Hey.
How you doing? So a couple of things. First of all, regarding, your U.S. guest, Mr. Tobin, and as far as, negotiations with Hamas, I agree basically the terrorists and normal policy is not to negotiate, but it's unfortunate in this case we have no choice because our duty is really to those families and returning the hostages safely. And I think we need to use all the efforts to do that. That's really priority one. I think if Joe Biden had his head on straight, that's all he would be talking about, and basically saying we do nothing until we talk about returning these hostages safely. That's first thing. Second thing I wanted to talk about regarding the attacks on former President Trump, would you agree that that's kind of a moot issue now because recent polls show Nikki Haley is well eclipsing Joe Biden in the polls? And every day that this crisis goes on, Joe Biden's essentially going to lose more and more support. He's mishandled this crisis from the start. And I think that really Trump is not even his issue anymore. And I think, would you agree that perhaps the Biden presidency or legacy is in fact done because the crows have come home to roost with the soft in Iran and soft and disastrous foreign policy?
Well, these are all good points, but here's my thought. I would think anybody who's paying attention and reading the tea leaves and seeing what's going on would say, okay, so Joe Biden's been here and spent money like crazy. We had inflation. He's bringing down inflation by raising mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are super high, and the housing market is not where it ought to be. But we did add some jobs recently. Job growth hasn't been exactly what we expected it to be, but the last report was a halfway decent one. And when we look at foreign policy, we say, okay, well, we've got this war that seems unending that we're doing very little to help with in Europe. Then now we have a new war that's going on in the Middle East. And if I were a passive observer, I would say things seem to be going really south with Joe Biden. You've got Democrats calling for help, waving the white flag, mayors like those in San Francisco and New York and other areas are saying we're overrun with illegal immigrants. The border is absolutely wide open. There's a ton of crime coming through there. Fentanyl deaths are through the roof. So I would say Biden fails on a lot of marks, and that's probably why his poll, the most recent poll, has gone down. His disapproval rating has gone up. Less people approve. However, I do see Biden trying to turn this around and make it look like, look, I've got my hands full. We've got wars on multiple fronts. This isn't the right time to change leadership. I'm the man in charge. And history has proven that when there are wars, voters tend to want stability and let the current commander in chief kind of see it through and finish his job. Now, not every instance in history is like that. There's other instances that don't reflect that. But I feel that Biden's still in a place where he could turn this around through the media and say, we're doing this, we're fighting the terrorists, and and really try to make it look like this is America versus the bad guys. And if he makes that case, we're fighting Putin, we're fighting the Hamas terrorists, we're fighting for each and every one of you Americans, I think that starts to bring back some of his support, because all he has to do is show up and say a few words and squint and smile and put on his aviator shades. And I think he usually makes a mark on these polls where he either goes back or gains a point or two. So I feel that he's not dead in the water yet. He should be, but he's not. And the fact that he was able to pull off all of these disastrous policies, the ones you've mentioned, the ones others have mentioned, the ones I've mentioned, to me says it's a very forgiving electorate. They really, really have sympathy for Joe Biden for whatever reason. So I think we need to have a little bit more emphasis on Biden's failures, and perhaps that might begin to sway public opinion. But I don't think that we're there yet, Abe. I just don't.
Okay. Thank you, Rich.
Oh, you're welcome. And I hate to give that report. I wish I could have said he's dead in the water. We're never going to see him again. But lamentably, I think there's still people that are going to try and rescue him. Let me see. Where do we go? Well, we'll take a quick pause right here. We're going to come back to the rest of your calls. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Amigos, we're going to continue our conversation with your calls, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Another reminder, Open Phone America is coming up at the top of the next hour. You're welcome to call in on any topic and let your voice be heard. And we'll be doing that momentarily. But a couple of things I'm going to talk about in that hour. The Biden campaign has created a Truth Social account. That's Donald Trump's social media company. Mayor Eric Adams is using AI to have robocalls, political campaign calls, in different languages. He's not even doing it. He just said it, and they translate it using his voice. I think that's pretty interesting. El Chapo, the cartel boss, well, his cartel is now banning the production of fentanyl under penalty of death by the cartel. We'll talk about that straight ahead as well. And there was a green, quote unquote, green or natural funeral home that was not refrigerating their dead. And it began to stink, and they got raided by the health officials. And these officials have now found that there were 115 bodies. That number's now gone up to 189 bodies that were found rotting because they don't use refrigeration because they're quote unquote green. It's the climate change funeral home. Absolutely nuts. We'll talk about that in a little while. And you're going to find out what most Americans support in a new poll has something to do with the border, and I'll explain all about it. But first, I want to get to the calls. Let us go to Andrew, Sebring, Florida, WWTK. Andrew, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hi, Rich, and thank you for being there for us and letting us have a little voice. Thank you. I just wanted to say, as a Christian, and I know there's a lot of other Christians that listen to your station, we're really not hearing enough about this story. I don't think a lot of folks truly understand the whole story behind Israel and what Israel itself really is. I believe if a lot of folks would look into this, they might find problems with what's happening today, such as the ultra-Orthodox. If you listen to the ultra-Orthodox Jewish people, they'll tell you the truth. They'll tell you the honest truth as to what Israel is and what it really means. And I urge folks to do that. It has nothing to do with, all the stuff that's going on today. And I just suggest that people open their Bibles again, call yourself a Christian and all that stuff, and, really look up on it. That's what I have to say, sir. Sure.
And when you talk about, I guess, where do you stand on this? What's your contention of what Israel is? I'm guessing you're talking about the land of milk and honey from the Bible, not the Jewish state formed in 1948.
Right. There we go. I guess that's the difference, sir. We're speaking of a state, okay, but it wasn't founded under the state thing. It was founded under a biblical text. Israel was founded on a biblical text from way back in the day, and they used that as their rights to be there. That's the crux of it. The Balfour Declaration went through, yada, 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 here we go. However, we do know that it's the Zionists that created all this. And there's a plenty behind that. I don't want to get into all that stuff. Where I stand with it personally is that what's happening isn't right. None of it's right. The claims, the treatments of people, it's not right. We're watching something that's really horrible, and this isn't going to end, my friend. This is Bible stuff, and Christians really need to start talking about that part of it, because that's even scarier than babies' heads getting cut off, honestly.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, look, I think from whether you're looking at it secularly or spiritually, either way, I think that this is an ugly situation. And when you have one side that is making the claim, to me, this is the one I can't get over. The charter of Hamas, when they say that their purpose for existing and forming Hamas is to eradicate the Jews. This is a very non-negotiable, right? I mean, how can one, in all honesty and in all fairness, negotiate with someone that is dedicated to removing you from existence? I mean, literally, it's an existential threat. And Israel is kind of used to that because historically they've been exiled before and they've been attacked before, and they're the only group that endured the Holocaust. So I think there's so many people out there that understand, Israelis, Jews, that understand that there are people that want them to become extinct. And I can tell you, I've never woken up a day in my life, other than, politically speaking, where people want me extinct. But outside of that, in terms of people wanting me dead, I've never been through that. And I'd say most Jews have. And that's just a fascinating concept to think that, most of your life and your ancestors, everybody's gone through some form of hatred, including the Holocaust, which is probably the most egregious among them. Anyway, Andrew, thank you for your call. Folks are coming right back. Open Phone America is coming up right now. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. This is Open Phone America. It's the Tuesday night edition, right? Because today is Tuesday. And the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And earlier I mentioned Joe Biden is heading to Israel. Blinken has been snubbed by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. President Biden has been snubbed by President Abbas of Palestine, and it just doesn't seem to be going very well for President Biden. But again, I don't even know what his motivation really is. I don't think he's there just to, I think he's there to get cameras. He's there to get some eyeballs. He wants to make some headlines saying, hey, look, hey, man, I'm here. I got hairy legs. Come on, man. You ain't black. And all the other crazy things that he says, because he wants to look like he's a leader on the world stage. He wants to look like he's doing something. But I think he also realizes that while he's there's not going to be much fighting. Depending on what, where he ends up going, there's going to be a lot less. It slows down the Israelis from advancing. And if they're smart, it's going to slow down Hamas. I mean, if they decide to take a shot at the American president, I guess, they're going to be in for it. That would be my expectation. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe General Milley or, well, he's gone now. Maybe C.Q. Brown and what's his name from the DOD? I'm forgetting his name. Lloyd Austin, Secretary Austin. They might say, no, we're not good. They might be like AOC and say, no, we need a ceasefire. That's what we need to do. I don't know. Doesn't look good. It doesn't sound good to me. But that's what's happening there. Then there's this story that I want to just quickly get into. The Sinaloa drug cartel. As we know, Biden's open border has been wreaking havoc on America. But who do we have to look out for? For us, El Chapo. Right, he's behind bars, but his cartel is now banning the production of fentanyl under penalty of them killing you. They are saying there's a death penalty if you start making fentanyl. Mexico's notorious Sinaloa cartel, which was once ruled by El Chapo, Joaquin Guzman, who's now in jail, has barred the production of fentanyl under penalty of death. The about face by the narco crew, the main trafficker of the deadly synthetic opioid that's been flooding the U.S., comes as El Chapo's kids are now agreeing that law enforcement is coming down too hard on them, and they're saying, all right, we're good. That's according to the Wall Street Journal on Monday. The order came from the Chapitos, that's the name of Guzman's sons who took over his drug operation. In Sinaloa, the sale, manufacture, transport, or any kind of business involving the substance of fentanyl, including the sale of chemical products for its creation, is permanently banned, said one of the several banners hung on billboards in overpasses in Culiacan, Colombia. Isn't that something? Or, I'm sorry, Culiacan, Mexico. Again, it says, you've been warned, sincerely, the Chapitos. So the young El Chapos, that's so funny. U.S. law enforcement officials are skeptical about the decree and said the ban is expected to do little to curb the fentanyl trade and could lead to an increase in heroin and cocaine trafficking. Obviously, they're going to keep making their money. How and where is kind of what remains. What exactly are they going to sell? They're not going to take a loss on that. But I think, whatever victory they get is a good one. If we can stop fentanyl, that seems to be killing at least people who aren't even trying to do drugs, that are just maybe just trying to take whatever it was. You had some people taking what they thought was a Xanax. You had other people taking what they thought was Adderall, and voila, they dropped dead. Labeled falsely, in my opinion, as accidental overdose when they should really be labeled as fentanyl poisoning, because they weren't overdosing if they took one pill. Obviously, it's the right dosage. It's the wrong pill because it's counterfeit. And this, to me, again, is, sounds like fodder to me. Maybe it's the real deal. This is how they play this game. Oh, you don't want fentanyl? All right, we'll give you no fentanyl. No problem. Let's, stem up production of the other stuff. They're not going to take a loss. They're not going to lose money. That's for sure. It's the cartel we're talking about. And we have Joe Biden to thank for that with all of the crazy that's going on. But I want to get to your calls. Several of you I know called in last night and weren't able to get on because it was a pretty packed show But I want to go to Sedona, Arizona, to Pat. He's listening online. Rich Valdez, AmericaAtNight.com is the website. Pat, go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, how you doing? Hey, it's
thanks.
great. I was one of the people dismissed you by maybe one or two spots, but I don't mind coming back the next day. It's worth the show, and you're worth listening to, my friend.
Thank you,
You're really good. I want to say something. You know, I have these people I work with, very much liberals, and I work for a big chain store. I'm not going to say its name, but you know, I'm talking to them, I'm listening, but they won't listen to me because they know I'm conservative. I am evil. I am the dark one.
You're the bad guy.
And they kind of laugh at me tongue in cheek, and I laugh at them tongue in cheek. But you know, I said something connection wise. You know, listen to these Palestinians. You know, my home back in my home state in Denver, they're having a big protest up on the Capitol building, denouncing that the Israelis are murdering innocent people, even though the Palestinians were guarding. I know it's all about Hezbollah. Hezbollah pays these people to stay in front of them, you know. And I was over there, and these Hezbollah guys use human bodies as guards when American soldiers come in, because they know American soldiers do not like killing civilians and also children and women. We just, you know, it's very hard for us. You know,
Now, when you say you were over there, where were you?
Well, I was in Lebanon back in the early 80s, and then I was in Saudi Arabia in Kuwaiti Desert, but there was no Hezbollah there. But, you know, Iran was just right over the hill, as most everybody used to say, over the sand hills and stuff. And I was in the Gulf War. And I tell you, you get a sense of these people, you know, Hezbollah and the Palestinians. The Palestinians are like cattle to them. They seem to reach the ends of the means. And their means are to, like, as you say, you keep saying it, and you're right on, that they want to kill the Israelis, and they want to end Palestine. They want to end, you know, all that. And they want to kill every Jew they can. And what they did to those people, you know, when they came over the border, and they burned kids. They burned them. I mean, it's sick and gross, but I you know, it's just, you think about this, and then you think about the ones in our country. There are you know, they're clapping, they're happy. I wonder, I can't remember back in 9/11, were they some of the people that were dancing in the street after 9/11? I dare they probably didn't want to do that, because I don't know if they had that much guts, because Americans were pretty mad after that. It could have been some instances like that. But, you know, like you were talking about this Jewish man.
Right, and they weren't rallies for sure. If it happened, these were small incidents. But first, Pat, I want to thank you for your service. I really appreciate that. And the second thing I think is you make a good point. When you said you were dealing with them, again, back in the 80s, with at least Hezbollah, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but you tell me Hamas, you tell me Hezbollah, you tell me Islamic Jihad, the Muslim Brotherhood. To me, they're all birds of a feather, right? They're all very similar. And this idea that you're saying back in the 80s that they would, you know, bring civilians with them as guards or as human shields to protect them, this is an old technique. They've been doing this for a long time, and now they've kind of perfected it, where they put rocket launchers or, you know, surface to air missiles on the roofs of schools, hospitals, and mosques, where they can hide out, and they have these tunnels that they've built. It's a pretty elaborate guerrilla operation, and they know what they're doing, and obviously they're funded and they're getting things. They're saying they can't get electricity, they can't get water, but yet these guys haven't run out of guns. They haven't run out of ammo. And granted, they probably got it in before, but my suspicion is that clearly they're able to get the supplies that they need, and that's why they're able to continue fighting, Pat.
You know, where did they get the money? Okay, follow the money trail. It's Obama. Obama's era gave Iran billions back. And now Joe Biden's doing it. And what are they doing with it? Not humanitarian, They're not buying food. They're not buying medicine. They're buying terror. And maybe these guys did this purposely. Maybe they wanted this to happen. I don't think Obama's that stupid. I know Joe Biden, he's not, I don't know if he's dumb or stupid, but I don't know if he's half there anyway. And it's just, you connect it all up with what's going on in Congress when they don't know, they can't get a leader, so they can't have, we don't have an oar in the water. We don't have a tiller. We can't steer our ship anymore right now. And we are primed for this. This is what bothers me. We are primed. And what I saw in Denver and the hatred in those people's eyes and the hatred they have for America, they were stepping on the American flag. So a bunch of patriots came up to them and, melee started, right? Okay, the cops came, they broke it up, and guess what? The Palestinian people and the liberals that were with them didn't have a protesting or a rally permit. Of course, the other guys didn't either, but they arrested the ones causing physical violence, and they asked everybody to go home. Well, guess what? The Palestinians didn't go home, and they had this guy on the state council, and he calls himself a gangster. I don't know what it is. I don't live in the state. I haven't lived in the state for years. And he said, they're going to stay because I'm going to stay with them, and the cop's going to have to arrest me. So they got to stay because this guy promoted them. And you think about it, and you think about our government, and you think about the DOJ, the FBI, and the CIA. They're all out of control. They're all against Americans. Anybody who's like a Trumpster or a Trump person who believes in the rule of law, because if we didn't, we'd be doing all crazy stuff.
Right.
I mean,
it would be absolute bedlam. I agree with you. And you make a good point when you say if you connect the dots, you've got the establishment in Washington. Some want to call them the deep state. You've got those in Congress like AOC, all out crazy, our least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You've got Hamas and everybody else. And when you really look, it seems like a lot of these people are on, if not the same page, at least similar pages and headed in the wrong direction. And that's bad for America. Pat, I want to thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Again, thank you for your service. We're going to get to the rest of your calls. We've got calls from North Carolina, Idaho, Missouri, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, and more that are coming in right now. So don't go anywhere. Don't move a muscle. Our phone number, 833-482-5337. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We're going to continue with your calls and more Open Phone America. I want to go to Middletown, Virginia, WINC, and check in with Brian. Brian, welcome. You're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, how are you this evening?
I'm doing fantastic, Brian. Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to tell you that I really appreciate what you do.
Oh, thank you.
And I listen to you every night. And I also want you to know that I have 3 sons serving in the military, 1 Navy and 2 Marines.
Well, God bless them. I thank them for their service.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they're all on 3 different ships tonight, heading into harm's way.
Oh, wow.
They're all heading into the Med, so it's a terrible thing for a 49-year-old dad to have to consider, but
I can't even imagine.
I taught them, I taught them right. They know, how to, take a bloody nose, and they fought each other too.
I don't doubt that. I have daughters and they fight each other. So I can totally see that happening.
They're all Eagle Scouts, and they, just,
wow, nice.
graduated top of their class. But I just wanted to say thank you for, bringing truth, for considering a Christian value to the perspective of what's going on. This is all prophesied, Book of Daniel type stuff.
Yeah.
It's a terrible situation that we're now encountering, and I didn't think it would happen in my lifetime. I didn't want it to happen in my lifetime, but now my boys are going to have to do it. But I guess that's all I pretty much had to say. I just wanted to say thank you.
Well, thank you. It's extraordinarily kind of you to thank me when you've got the three men that you've raised out there defending our nation, and you're being a faithful listener. So I thank you for doing a great job, for being an amazing dad and doing the right thing, and for tuning in, obviously. And I appreciate it. I appreciate your kind words, and I'm just grateful that you're out there doing the right thing. And it sounds like you're a praying man, so I'm going to join you in some prayers tonight for those boys as they do what many others won't. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And I want to tell you my family motto.
What's that?
That I gave this motto to my boys, and I came up with it. Even the boogeyman checks under his bed for us.
That's great, and I'm stealing it. Brian in Middletown, Virginia. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. All right, let's see. Where do we go? Well, at this moment. All right, minute and a half we can do. Let's go to Bill in Jefferson City, Missouri, KTTR. Bill, go right ahead.
Yes, Rich, congratulations on this anniversary night for you. And I just happened to be in Walmart looking at a headline on a tabloid that said, "Is Joe Biden dying?" And, man, that reminded me of Franklin Roosevelt back in 1944 and the Tehran Conference and all that, and the fact that he disregarded his doctor's advice, and Harry Truman knew about it, and it was just painful, and so it just reminded me of that, and I'm glad that President Biden did not go to in harm's way, as one of your guests mentioned, and that's really what I want to call about tonight.
Well, thank you, Bill, our unofficial resident historian of the program. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, Bill. And I'll tell you, it's funny. Back, you mentioned this propaganda in the media back when they were dealing with Tehran, and here we are dealing with Tehran again through proxy. Coincidence? I think not. Folks, we're coming right back to your calls and more. It's Rich Valdez, America at Night, Open Phone America.
This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
We condemn this action in the strongest possible terms, and we hold Israel responsible for this massacre, this crime, not only to condemn this crime, and they should, but also to have an immediate ceasefire to save lives.
That is Mansour, Riyad Mansour. He placed blame for hundreds of lives lost at a hospital in Gaza squarely on the Israelis. This is the current situation that they have. They're condemning the bombing. Israel says it wasn't us. We didn't blow it up. Matter of fact, it was your buddies, Islamic Jihad. another terror group that is based out of Gaza in addition to Hamas. Very interesting stuff going on there. And there's more, right? Let me just give you a couple updates on this in case you haven't heard, and I'm pretty sure you have. Rioters set fire to the U.S. Embassy in Lebanon. Terrorist sympathizers try to storm the Israeli embassy in Jordan. Things are getting ugly out there. And, of course, the Palestinian Authority leader, Mahmoud Abbas, I say that because how often can I say Mahmoud, right? Cancels his meeting with Biden. You've got Blinken getting dissed by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Persona non grata. They don't like him in America. They don't like him in the Middle East either. Absolutely crazy town. We're going to continue with your calls. We've got calls from all over the place. Let's go to Katie, Reading, Pennsylvania, WEEU. Katie, go right ahead.
Oh, I just dropped the phone, Rich. Anyways, I wrote this down so that way I won't mess up.
Sure.
Oh, crap. I'm dropping. All right. Anyway, to me, the order of events prior COVID to the present day.
Yeah.
They all, meaning, Trump and politicians, etc., all them, they all traveled in the same social circles. All the peoples whose lives cross, intertwine, share social circles with, et cetera, they all know how each other are, whether they're intimately involved, intensely involved, or whatever. They all know how each other's going to act, react, and their characters. Now, with that knowledge, they count on the fact that so-and-so won't get out of line. They'll always do what they're going to do.
Now, are you talking about like the Washington elite?
I'm talking about the politicians and the rich people like Donald Trump and his buddies, et cetera, et cetera. See, they all traveled in the same circles, like they cross over. Think about, Trump's not a stranger to the White House. At least, he's been invited to parties. They all know each other.
Right.
But they all count on each other's characters and actions to always be the same until they're not, which is hence Donald Trump. You might complain you're going to do this, you're going to do that. We all do it. But what do you do when finally somebody steps out of the circle and actually does what they say they're going to do? Well, hence the COVID virus. I believe that virus was intended for one purpose, and that was to kill him. However, the person who was delivering it got all caught up on the, love boat type of thing and really messed up. Hence why it got out of hand. Now, with that said, along with that, they transpired to controls, but everything got out of control. The elections and so on and so forth. But they're still high on their own arrogance, as we can all see this.
Yeah.
And
well, listen, I don't doubt that they wanted to kill Trump. I don't know if they wanted to do it specifically with COVID or not, but it wouldn't surprise me if that were the case. I don't have any reason to believe that that is the case. But I think you're right that there is a clear defector in the group, and it was Trump. Trump was one of them, had Hillary at his wedding, and now a lot of them don't like him anymore because, once he got a real bird's eye view of what was going on and confirmed whatever suspicions he had about how corrupt our government system is, he was calling them out and putting an end to it. And this is the gravy train for a lot of people. So they decide, all right, we're going to try and slow him down. And whether it's through lawfare now with all these bogus court claims or whatever else they're trying to do to hurt Trump, lock him up to get a conviction so that he can't run for public office. I mean, you name it, they're pursuing every angle. And meanwhile, Trump is out there. He's still out there smiling. He's there. He's giving these little stump speeches outside of the courtroom as he heads into trial. Says he'll go to jail if he has to. We played that audio earlier. He's getting endorsements from rappers. One of the rappers that just endorsed him, I think it was today, is a rapper named Waka Flocka Flame. And Waka Flocka is a big name in the hip-hop world. He's had big hits from back in the days. And it's interesting that people are taking the position saying, you know what, I'm going to support Trump publicly, especially if you're a rapper. It's not going to go over super well. But I think there's more and more of an appetite for that. And you're right. There's a lot of people out there that just don't like the fact that Trump isn't on their gravy train anymore. So now they have to look out for how they make their living and the corruption that they get involved in. And I think we're seeing the repercussions of that now, where Biden's, in damage control and loses it every now and again when he gets very testy, if you will. And I think that's where we are, and I think you're right about that, Katie. Thank you for your call. Big shout out to Reading, Pennsylvania, WEEU. We continue. Let's see. Let's go to Matt. He's near Morehead City, North Carolina, as I remember it, about 80 miles from Morehead City. WTKF. Matt, go right ahead.
Yes, sir, 80 miles north. Well, it's not just my opinion, but I came up with it first, if you will. First of all, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, brother. Thank you.
Good. Biden has no reason to go to Israel. He's too dangerous, number one. He's too frail, number two. And he should be here closing our southern border. What's your opinion?
I'm with you on that one. All I remember is sitting right here and seeing Biden arrive in, what's the capital of Ukraine again?
I don't remember.
Anybody in the control room? Kyiv. Yes. How do I forget? Kyiv. I remember he was there, and I was thinking he's walking around like there's no war going on. And I thought to myself, this is so fascinating. And then they released the videos, and there was an air raid siren that went off and making it look like they were under attack right where they were. And my thought was, the Russians aren't stupid. The Russians aren't going to start bombing while Biden's there. That's a problem they don't need. They're not Hamas, right? The Russians are way smarter. And I'll get in trouble now for saying the Russians are smart. But I believe that it's a different game for them. There's a political motivation to their war as opposed to, and of course a personal one, as opposed to what we see in the Middle East, where their motivation is the eradication of Jews and the Jewish state. I think it's slightly different in Europe. But bottom line, I agree with you. I don't think Biden should have gone. He can try to paint it as, look, I'm here trying to make peace. The problem is I don't think it's time for that, right? I think they're in the middle of trying to rescue hostages. And, Biden's the first one to say, I'm not going to go to East Palestine, Ohio, because, it's the middle of a train wreck and the air quality is not good. Or I'm not going here because, they're actively doing X, Y, and Z. But in this situation, he's like, no, sure, you guys are bombing and getting bombed, I'm going to show up. To me, it's a bad move. But again, if he does the right thing, it could show a lot of strength and power for the United States. We're going to see how that plays out. But I agree with you on that one, Matt.
Thank you.
You bet, brother. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Let me see. I'll take a quick pause here because then we'll only get halfway through your call and I'll have to put you on hold. So I'll give you the phone number. 833-482-5337 is the phone number. 833-4-VALDEZ. Coming right back to your calls and more.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Continuing our reaction to the news of the day with Americans from all across the country. Let's go straight to Boise, Idaho, KBOI, and check in with Paul. Paul, you're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich.
Yes, sir.
I wish it was happier times we could meet and talk.
Yeah, right? Buy me a beer. I don't even drink beer. Yeah. Buy me a Malbec. That's actually my favorite wine. But, Paul, what's on your mind tonight?
Oh, I think kind of a continuation the last time I talked to you last week. And that's kind of about the situation between
Israel and Hamas?
No, it was the one that bought the bombs with the oil money, Iran.
Oh, Iran.
Yeah, kind of a continuation of that. I'm sorry, I was just almost dozing off. Yeah,
don't worry, it happens to me, and I'm on the radio.
Kind of a mosaic, paint by numbers, what I was thinking. And the picture is coming a little bit more clear for me, and I'm hearing more, just snippets of it. But, it wasn't just the sale of the bombs that they're using over there, but it was how they got the money for it, and that was the sanctions that were stopped.
Right.
And they were able to accrue close to $80 billion is what they guesstimated that. And
they
so
sold Russia a bunch of gas.
To build. Well, it was oil that they bought from Iran, and that was mainly the Chinese that did that. The Chinese that just have an insatiable appetite for oil, and that's where a lot of that money came from. But the issue is really it's who was kind of behind all that to begin with. And that
what are your thoughts? Who do you think's behind it?
Well, it's Joe Biden, and
That's right.
And it's Obama. And the reason why I put them together is because they were together when the plan came in to give them the bomb and level the playing field.
That's
and
an interesting perspective.
I can't think of anybody else that would have done that, but there was a catalyst in there as well. And that's the guy that was the Vietnam vet that shot himself in the tush to get the Bronze Star or the Purple Heart.
Yeah, Paul, I think that you're onto something. Where I feel like Biden, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I think he's got a lot of advice from a lot of people that are pretty sinister, and he's sinister in his own right. I don't want to ever sell him short. I call him Joe El Baboso, which means a bumbling idiot. But the truth is, I think he's very shrewd. He's really politically adept. He's an expert at corruption at the political level. I mean, really, Joe, who does it better than Joe Biden? He's like in your face doing what he does and, telling you not to believe your own lying eyes. It's a really interesting scenario that we're in here in America. Paul in Boise, Idaho, KBOI. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Let us go to Wisconsin, La Crosse, Wisconsin, KIZM, and check in with Tim. Tim, go right ahead, sir.
Hey, thanks. Nice to hear. Love your show. Good guy.
Thank you.
Just want to approach that other guy a little bit. I was never old enough to be in the war or anything like that, but no, I agree with him a little bit. These politicians like Joe Biden, and they're just slippery little devils, and they know how to play the game, and people got to wake up.
Do you think there's a connection between Obama and Biden?
Oh, yeah. Big time. Obama's pulling the strings.
What makes you think that?
He was in there for 8 years, and then Hillary didn't get in, and what did the people? They voted him out. Her out, Trump wins.
Right, yeah. He term limited. He didn't win. Trump got in. Yeah, I think you're onto something. I believe Obama still has a lot of influence, and I think the easiest way to assess that is to just look at there's a great video of his first appearance in the White House during Biden's presidency, and Biden was nearly like fighting to get some camera time because everybody was so crazy to see former President Obama back in the White House. So I think you're right. I think there's a lot of influence from that side. People are willing to be like, yeah, no, Biden's not so bad. He's terrific. Meanwhile, I think you've got others that realize, no, he's not terrific. This guy's costing us a ton, and it's not good for America. Tim in La Crosse, Wisconsin, WIZM. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. We're going to continue with the rest of your calls and more. 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We are going into the speed round. We've got 4 callers left and less than 4 minutes to do it. Everybody's got 30 seconds because we got to make time for the music and the sign-off. Let's start in Albany, New York, WGDJ. Linda, go right ahead quickly.
Yes, thank you. Just a reminder to people, if there's frustration, just giving prayers that Israel will handle this well and that they can get the truth out about how the terrorists, like with that hospital, the bomb, actually there was a terrorist bomb, went off, is important. Thank you.
I agree with you. You're welcome, Linda. I think prayers are really of utmost importance for everything, right? To make sure we wake up tomorrow, to make sure that we're all on track, and to make sure that people are safe out there. Thank you, Linda in Albany, New York, WGDJ. Let us continue to Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ. Check in with our brother Paul. Paul, what's up, my man?
Hey, good evening. Just a thought here. I think that this would be the perfect opportunity for China to snag Taiwan. With all the attention that's over in the Mideast and everything, I think this would be the perfect time for China to do that, and that might be up their sleeve. That's just a thought.
I think you're right. Why not? Right? Why not? What are they going to do? Is the U.S. going to come and protect Taiwan and protect Ukraine and protect Israel and be all over and spread thin when we know that so many of our soldiers now are, hosting the Drag Queen Story Hour on their military bases? It's just a crazy time. It's a crazy time. Guys like, the old school generals like Patton, they're rolling over. Absolutely horrible times right now. Paul, thanks for the call. Big shout out to WHIZ in Ohio. Let's continue with Robert, Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Go right ahead. Quickly.
Rich, people are busy following drag queens around, decrying how horrible it is, while and not paying attention to the politics. These terrible people get into very powerful political positions like oversight of our intelligence committee, while at the same time having sexual affairs with these communist spies. And our most powerful guy in the United States Senate, his wife is a Chinese business person, big time, and his whole empire, their whole empire is based upon the success of what he does. In other words, feeding each other, and it's corruption like there's no tomorrow, and the people have no idea. Some people don't even know how many states there are in America. So you can imagine how well they do at the polls when they go in. They have no idea who they're voting for. You're
right, Robert. I agree with you. I think there's a lot of poorly informed voters out there, and I think the point that you make is a solid one. We don't know where we're going, and if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, and this is why we need better leadership. Because ultimately, the crooked guys at the top, they're interested in making money, not really killing people. But then you have the Hamas and the rest of these guys that are totally interested in killing people, and it's a disconnect. Frank, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Frank, go for it, my man.
Hi, Rich. And one thing I've noticed ever since the early 90s was the change, the morphosis in our language out of East LA to the words like really and awesome and anyone that was an idiot would start out the conversation with
Right,
and
you're saying
the politicians are good.
Right, and it sounds like an over-casualization of our lexicon, of our language. And I think there's something to be said for a little bit of more formal mode of address with certain things. Frank, always a pleasure. Sorry we didn't have more time, but love hearing from you. Big shout out to KOFI. And hasta la próxima. I'm Rich Valdez. We'll do it all tomorrow. God bless.